It's my pleasure today to moderate a stellar panel on women in leadership in the section. Our theme this year is advocacy, which was developed by Amy Gilbert, who is the young lawyer representative for the Membership and Diversity Committee. I would like to recognize Amy for all of her hard work and dedication in putting together this year's interviews. Its success is due to her efforts and dedication. Now let's begin. This year's theme is advocacy, advocating for yourself, your client, and other women. I will ask each panelist to provide some background information. Please state your name, your employment title, your current Antitrust Law Section position or responsibility. Let's begin with Melissa Maxman.
Thank you so much, Goldie. I'm delighted to be here with such distinguished colleagues, and I'm honored to be invited. My name is Melissa Maxman. I am the managing partner of the DC office of Cohen and Gresser. I'm an antitrust litigator, and I am the co-chair of the Exemptions and Immunities Committee of the Section of Antitrust Law.
Next, we have Layla Hayden.
Thank you as well. I'm delighted to be here, and it really is an honor to be amongst this group of women. I am a partner at Edgeworth Economics. I'm an economist. My current position in the antitrust section is co-chair of the Economics Committee, and I have been in that position for a year, and this is the second year starting.
Thank you, Layla. Now we have Gabrielle Kohlmeyer.
Thanks, Goldie. I am Associate General Counsel of Antitrust and Strategic Projects at Verizon. And I've been in the antitrust leadership for about 8 years now. Currently, I am the Vice Chair of the Unilateral Conduct Committee, and I am a chair of the Tech Compliance Working Group of the Compliance and Ethics Committee, and am also heading the mentor program for the Membership and Diversity Committee.
Okay. And now we have Melanie Aiken.
Thanks, Goldie, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to be part of this great panel. Always interesting to chat about these issues. So I am a partner at Bennett Jones, which is a Canadian law firm. I actually am the Washington office of Bennett Jones, and with my whole team up in Canada. I am the co-head of our Foreign Investment and Antitrust Competition Group. And in terms of the ABA, I am currently on the council. I'm newly on the nominating committee. I'm also the co-chair of the task force on transparency and procedural fairness.
Thank you. Beginning again with Melissa, if you could tell us a little about your current practice.
Sure. I'm very much an antitrust litigator. I started my career too many years ago as a federal prosecutor in Philadelphia. And so, excuse me, whereas many actually, antitrust lawyers are very comfortable with both merger work and corporate counseling, I am much more comfortable in a courtroom or avoiding a courtroom. The other thing that's unusual, or maybe not completely unusual about my practice, is that since I left the U.S. Attorney's Office, I've done mostly civil work. And so I'm equally comfortable in a criminal case or in a civil case because the antitrust laws have the same statute for both. It can be very convenient and economically sound for clients to have one lawyer, one set of lawyers, first defend the criminal investigation, usually brought by a governmental agency, and then follow up and be able to defend the civil lawsuits that follow the criminal lawsuits like Day Follows Night.
Thank you. And Layla?
Sure. I provide, as an economist, either economic research and consulting or economic testimony, mostly in antitrust litigation, but also I have done so in some labor and employment cases and in some other practice areas. One of my specialties is the economics of class certification. I've worked quite a bit on antitrust class actions, and both in terms of testifying in those cases, but also I have published in the area and given numerous presentations on that particular topic.
Thank you. Gabrielle?
So my practice now runs the gamut. I went in-house about almost 2 years ago, and prior to that, unlike Melissa, I did both class action litigation and merger work, and now my position covers everything from mergers and CIDs when other parties are merging to any litigation type issues that come up, along with a lot of client counseling about everything from pricing issues to joint ventures to whatever affects any of our businesses. And then there's also a policy strategy component of where there is discussion about where antitrust is going and how this might affect the company. I'm very involved with that, working with our privacy teams, our federal regulatory teams, our security teams across all of those areas.
Thank you. And now for Melanie.
Yeah, so I currently, as I mentioned, I practice in D.C., but I'm just a Canadian lawyer, although I shouldn't minimize that. I do a lot of merger work, particularly on international deals, but also on purely domestic deals. I'm sort of a failed litigator, I guess. I started out as a trial lawyer and was a partner in a Toronto law firm, Davies, for most of my career before I sort of fell into antitrust, which you can do in Canada. Seems a little less common here. So now I do a lot of merger clearance work. I do conduct investigations. I do defense to third-party class actions and that sort of thing. The way I fell into antitrust was through litigation, and after a fairly significant case in the area, I went into the agency back and forth a couple of times, almost American in that, and we don't really do that in Canada. And I was I headed up merger review there for a few years, and then I was commissioner for 4 years, stepping down from that about 6 years ago and moving down to the U.S.
Thank you. My last question on your background will just be on how long you've been in the section and what other leadership positions you've held, if you've held any others.
Sure. I was encouraged to join the section early in my career when I was an associate. I first practiced in Philadelphia, as I said. I was at a law firm in Philadelphia. And the head of our trial department was very active in the antitrust section, and he encouraged me to get involved. So probably from the early 90s. And by the mid to late 90s, I was asked to be a vice chair of it was called the Telecommunications Committee at that point. It's changed. And I served as a vice chair there for 3 years. And then I rotated off. And then I moved to D.C., where my practice became much more varied in 2005. And from about 2011 or 12, I was trying to figure this out, I've been active in leadership. I was on the Global Litigation Committee, or Private Global Litigation. The precursor to that was a task force, and I was on that task force for several years, and then I was a vice chair of that. And then this is my second year as co-chair of the Exemptions and Immunities Committee.
And Layla, what other positions have you held, and how long have you been with the section?
So, like Melissa, I've actually also been with the section pretty much since I started my career in economic consulting. So I think I joined the section, I want to say, as a member about 14 or 15 years ago. Prior to the leadership role in the economics committee, I was on the editorial board of Antitrust magazine. That was just a couple of years ago, and from that I transferred to the position I'm in now.
Thank you. Gabrielle?
I also joined the section, I think as a first-year associate, volunteered for a lot of committees, and then my second year I became the young lawyer representative for the economics committee, and then the year after that I joined the Antitrust Law Journal as an editor and was on that until right now. So.
Thank you. And Melanie, how long have you been with the section?
It's a little bit different because as I said, I fell into antitrust. So I started being involved in section events in the late 90s. But then in around 2000, I started doing some work when Tom Barnett, before he went into the agency, and I did a project together. And then it all just, as these things do, float upon itself. I was very graciously welcomed. Kathy Fenton was chair at the time when I was in the agency. And it was kind of worked backwards because when you're an agency official, you get the nice, easier jobs because people appreciate you don't have some of the support. So I kind of went from the long-range planning committee, which is where you often end, worked back when I re-entered practice. I was a vice chair of the pricing and conduct committee for a few years, then the chair. Then I am now, as I think I mentioned, on the council and co-chairing a task force. So I've kind of done a number of different jobs over the years, but always enjoyed it.
Thank you. You can look for this podcast to be posted on the section's website as well as on our YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning in and have a great day.